and I wanted my room. And oh, David, most of all I wanted you, just you. Not because you could give me anything to compare in richness with what they could, not because this home was the best I'd ever known except theirs, not for any reason at all, only just that I wanted to see your face, hear your voice, and have you pick me up and take me in your arms when I was tired. That was when I almost quit writing. I couldn't say what I wanted to, and I wouldn't write trivial things, so I went on day after day just groping." "And you killed me alive," said the Harvester. "I was afraid of that, but I couldn't write. I just couldn't. It was 10 days ago that I thought of the bluebirds coming this year, and what it would mean to you, and that killed me, Man. It just hurt my heart until it ached to know that you were out here alone, and that night I couldn't sleep because I was thinking of you, and it came to me that if I had your lips then, I could give you a much, much better kiss than the last. And when it was light, I wrote that line. Nearly a week later, I got your answer early in the morning, and it almost drove me wild. I took it and went for the day with May, and I told her. She took me upstairs and we talked it over, and before I left she made me promise that I would write you and explain how I felt and ask you what you thought. She wanted you to come there and see if you couldn't make them at least respect you. I know I was crying, and she was bathing the baby. She went to bring something she had forgotten, and she gave him to me to hold, just his little naked body. He stood on my lap and mauled my face and pulled my hair and hugged me with his stout little arms and kissed me big, soft, wet kisses, and something sprang to life in my heart that never before had been there. I just cried all over him and held him fast, and I couldn't give him up when she came back. I saw why I'd wanted a big doll all my life right then. And oh dear, the doll you sent was beautiful. But David, did you ever hold a little living child in your arms like that?" "I never did," said the Harvester huskily. He looked at her face and saw the tears rolling, but he could say no more, so he leaned his head against her knee, and finding one of her hands, he drew it to his lips. "It is wonderful," said the Girl softly. "It awakens something in your heart that makes it all soft and tender, and you feel an awful responsibility, too. Grandmother had them telephone at last, and May helped me bathe my face and fix my hat. When we went to the carriage, Mr. Kennedy was there to take me home. We went past grandmother's florist to get her some violets. David, she is sleeping under yours, with just a few touching her lips. Oh, it was lovely of you to get them. Your fairies must have told you. She has them every day, and one of the objections she made to coming here was that she couldn't do without them in winter, and she found some on her pillow the very first thing. David, you are wonderful! And grandfather with his lily! I know where he found that. I knew instantly. Ah, there are fairies who tell you because you deserve to know." The Girl bent, and slipping her arm around his neck, hugged him tight an instant, and then she continued unsteadily, "While he was in the shop, Harvester, this is like your wildest dream, but it's truest truth. A boy came down the walk crying papers, and as I live, he called your name. I knew it had to be you because he said, 'First drug farm in America. Wonderful medicine contributed to the cause of science. David Langston honored by National Medical Association.' I just stood in the carriage and screamed, 'Boy! Boy!' until the coachman thought I had lost my senses. He whistled and got me the paper. I was shaking, so I asked him how to find anything you wanted quickly, and he pointed the column where events are listed. And when I found the 3rd page, there was your face so splendidly reproduced, and you seemed so fine and noble to me, I forgot about the dress suit and the badge in your buttonhole, or to wonder when or how or why it could have happened. I just sat there shouting in my soul, 'David! David! Medicine Man! Harvester Man!' again and again. I don't know what I said to Mr. Kennedy or how I got to my room. I scanned it by the column. At last I got to paragraphs, and finally I read all the sentences. David, I kissed that newspaper face 100 times, and if you could have had those, Man, I think you would have said they were right. David, there is nothing to cry over." "I'm not," said the Harvester, wiping the splashes from her hand. "But Ruth, forget what I said about being brief. I didn't realize what was coming. I should have said, if you've any mercy at all, go slowly. This is the greatest thing that ever happened, or ever will happen to me. See that you don't leave out one word of it." "I told you I had to tell you first," said the Girl. "I understand now," said the Harvester, his head against her knee while he pressed her hand to his lips. "I see. Your coming couldn't be perfect without knowing this first. Go on, dear heart, and slowly. You owe me every word." "When I had it all absorbed, I carried the paper to the library and said, 'Grandfather, such a wonderful thing has happened. A man has had a new idea, and he has done a unique work that the whole world is going to recognize. He has stood before men and made a speech that few, oh so few, could make honestly, and he has advocated right living, oh so nobly. And he has given a wonderful gift to science without price, because through it he first saved the life he loved best. Isn't that marvellous, Grandfather?' And he said, 'Very marvellous, Ruth. Won't you sit down and read to me about it?' And I said, 'I can't, dear grandfather, because I have been away from grandmother all day, and she is fretting for me, and to night is a great ball, and she has spent millions on my dress, I think, and there is an especial reason why I must go, and so I have to see her now, but I want to show you the man's face, and then you can read the story.' You see, I knew if I started to read it he would stop me, but if I left him alone with it he would be so curious he would finish. So I turned your name under and held the paper and said, 'What do you think of that face, Grandfather? Study it carefully.' And, man, guess what he said? He said, 'I think it is the face of one of nature's noblemen.' I just kissed him time and again, and then I said, 'So it is, Grandfather, so it is. For it is the face of the man who twice saved my life, and lifted my mother from almost a pauper grave, and laid her to rest in state, and the man who found you and sent me to you when I was determined not to come.' And I just stood and kissed that paper before him, and cried again and again, 'He is one of nature's noblemen, and he is my husband, my dear, dear husband, and to-morrow I am going home to him.' Then I laid the paper on his lap and ran away. I went to grandmother and did everything she wanted. Then I dressed for the ball. I went to say good bye to her and show my dress, and grandfather was there, and he followed me out and said, 'Ruth, you didn't mean it.' I said, 'Did you read the paper, Grandfather?' And he said, 'Yes.' And I said, 'Then I should think you would know I mean it, and glory in my wonderful luck. Think of a man like that, Grandfather.' I went to the ball, and I danced and had a lovely time with every one, because I knew it was going to be the very last, and to-morrow I must start to you. On the way home I told Mr. Kennedy what paper to get and to read it. I said good bye to him, and I really think he cared, but I was too happy to be very sorry. When I reached my room there was a packet for me, and Man, like David of old, you are a wonderful poet. Oh, Harvester, why didn't you send them to me instead of the cold, hard things you wrote?" "What do you mean, Ruth?" "Those letters, those wonderful outpourings of love and passion and poetry and song and broken heartedness. Oh Man, how could you write such things and throw them in the fire? Granny Moreland found them when she came to bring you a pie, and she carried them to Doctor Carey, and he sent them to me. And David, they finished me. Everything came in a heap. I would have come without them, but never, never with quite the understanding, for as I read them, the deeps opened up and the flood broke, and there did a warm tide go through all my being, like you said it would. And now, David, I know what you mean by love. I called the maids and they packed my trunk and grandmother's, and I had grandfather's valet pack his, and go and secure berths and tickets and learn about trains, and I got everything ready, even to the ambulance and doctor, but I waited until morning to tell them. I knew they would not let me come alone, so I brought them along. David, what in the world are we going to do with them?" The Harvester drew a deep breath and looked at the flushed face of the Girl. "With no time to mature a plan, I would say that we are going to love them, care for them, gradually teach them our work, and interest them in our plans.